EA Sports UFC 4 has promised to be more accessible to players, with a new grapple assist, easier striking inputs, and submissions being overhauled to be more intuitive. Can EA Sports UFC 4 improve on some of the core gameplay concepts from past titles? Or is it out of its weight class? Find out in our review. UFC 4 comes with all the bells and whistles that you'd expect from an MMA video game, including new game modes like the online blitz battles, cool locations such as the Kumite and Backyard, and novelty fighters that include Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Kimbo Slice, and even Dana White. That's just the paint to make it all look pretty though, as the true meat and potatoes of UFC 4 is in its career mode and fighter customization.
Let's keep it fun. Look for that submission.
In fact, UFC 4 kicks off with players creating a fighter. You choose your sex, weight class, shorts, gloves, mouthpiece, walkout music, emotes, and more. Then it's time to meet Coach Davis, the guy who's going to teach you the ins and outs of the fight game and hopefully coach you to a title.
I want to see your skills right now. Let's get in there and push.
I decided to go with a heavyweight boxer nicknamed Bam Bam. I even secured my @BamBamMMA for my in-game social media handle. Coach Davis watched me lose an amateur fight, but since he loved my toughness, he invited me to his gym to train me personally.
I just found a kid with heart, like I'd never seen, so I reached out.
This kicked off tutorials to learn the basic moves and disciplines of MMA. And each lesson was followed by an amateur fight against an opponent who specialized in those skills. This provided a good understanding of what MMA is and prepared me for the game's new systems and controls.
He's in trouble. He's hurt bad.
Soon I was given a fight in front of UFC boss, Dana White, to try for a spot in the UFC. I won by knockout and was offered a contract. Although it is possible to also get into the WFA, a lesser-known MMA organization, and then work your way into the UFC. Dana saw something in me and signed me immediately. This kicked off the UFC career mode, where I dominated as champion for the bulk of the experience. I played on normal difficulty and could have cranked it up, but I like my virtual face punching to be a little more chill than intense. Once I accepted my first UFC fight, I had to partake in a fight camp, which lasts several in-game weeks. Players must do things like promote the fight, spar with training partners, invite UFC fighters to camp to learn new moves, and study tapes on upcoming opponents. This is also where the game's social media mechanic lives, as well as options to customize your fighter with new gear and spend earned points to upgrade skills and buy perks. Players will spend a lot of time in fight camps in between matches, meaning the bulk of the player's time is likely to take place in menus and sparring instead of the octagon. Sparring is the lesser of two evils here, as it allows you to learn new moves and improve the ones you already know. When you're sparring 4 or 5 times a camp, and each session is 2 minutes long, that's 10 minutes alone, assuming you don't restart to try again.
Looking sharp, kid. That's what I like to see. Volume and precision.
When players aren't sparring, they can watch tapes of their opponents, which I found useless as someone who follows MMA and the UFC. Although I can see the benefit for those who don't. Although you don't actually watch tapes, you just press a button and some text appears. Fight camps are rounded out by promoting fights, connecting with other fighters, and inviting them to camp. And a social media mechanic that supposedly impacts your career, depending on how you handle it. These all lack depth or consequences besides inviting fighters to camp to train with you. Sure, promoting fights helped me earn more money, but once I had 22 million in earnings, I didn't care. Yes, there was one time I was able to reply to a fighter on social media, and we fought, but it happened once in a career that spanned north of 25 fights. The redeeming part of fight camp for me was learning moves from other fighters and sparring to upgrade them. Even if it was a bit time consuming, I was able to pay fighters to come to my camp and show me specific moves, then add those moves to my arsenal. When you step out of career mode to try some of the other options, including various online modes, it's a breath of fresh air. As a personal preference, I have no desire to spend a lot of time in any sports games online modes, but I do appreciate UFC 4 Online in small doses. There are options like Quick Fight to get right into the action with either MMA rules, knockout mode, or stand and bang. There's also online world championships that include leaderboards and belts, and the new Blitz Battles, which is a fast-paced tournament where fights are quick and the rules rotate. Your fighter profile follows you wherever you go, and it was neat to bring my heavyweight created fighter into an online match as a welterweight.
Ready to fight?
My online connection was always good, and I never had a problem with opponents lagging. I was able to find fights rather quickly, even before release when player population would be low. It's just that I don't crave that person-to-person combat, and the reward for competing is XP to unlock cosmetics, which I also don't care about. Maybe it's just me pushing 40, but I don't see the incentive to play online. And that's okay, because EA was clear that career mode was by far fans' favorite place to play.
The baddest man on the planet, there he is, in the flesh. He has defended this title in the past, and despite the fact that this has been a belt that has changed hands quite a bit, not since this man has held it down. We'll see if he can keep his...
The true shining star of UFC 4 is the actual gameplay, and it gets better the more time you spend learning the moves and investing in their development. Each move you learn starts off with a 1-star rating, but as you use that move in training and in fights, you increase your proficiency with it. Prior to playing, I specifically asked the developers if I could develop a wicked overhand like Dan Henderson. They assured me I could, and they were not lying. I focused on throwing my over right hand, and before long, I was knocking out opponents with that shot in training and in fights. I eventually maxed out the move's rating at the prestige level. This is made even more rewarding with what UFC 4 calls high-impact movements, where you can see and hear the damage a strike causes, and you really do feel the impact.
Lands a huge right hand.
That one was...
Whoa!
The fight mechanics in UFC 4 are stellar. This is thanks to the grapple assist, locomotion for takedowns, fluid clinch control, dynamic striking, and a submission system that includes 2 simplified minigames. While the dynamic striking allows for simplified strikes depending on the button press or hold is a welcome feature. Grapple assist is a big one. There were several fights where I was taking more damage than I was comfortable with on my feet, which impacts career longevity. Once you're out of longevity, your career is over, so grappling is super necessary, as Jorge Masvidal would say.
It was obvious that the opponent was way more experienced.
In past UFC games, players had to learn button inputs that were clunky anytime they wanted to grapple on the ground. While you still can use that old system, leaving grapple assist on lets you transition with the press of the left stick in one direction. This allows players to quickly move towards a submission, get into a ground and pound position, or get up. While grapple assist does take a bit of control from players, it'll be a hit with casuals who were frustrated with the ground gameplay of previous UFC titles. The improvements continue with takedowns and the clinch game. You still need a button combination to initiate a takedown or the clinch, but once you start, it's all up to locomotion. A person trying to score a takedown or maintain the clinch will press the left stick towards the defender, and the defender will press the left stick away to escape or defend. I used to get trapped in the clinch all the time, but in UFC 4, I can count the number of times that happened on one hand, and it's always because I was stuck against the fence.
Now all in a quick entry.
Great single entry, rotates to high crotch, taking for a ride.
Rounding out the gameplay improvements are submissions, and UFC 4 features 2 new minigames, one for chokes and one for joint submissions. For chokes, the offensive player will move their left stick around a circle, trying to cover an opponent's bar with their own. The opponent will move their left stick and try to keep their bar from being covered. It's like a game of tag, really. For joints, players will simply press the trigger buttons to move their bars, but the concept remains the same. Both minigames are intuitive and simplified over past iterations, and are an overall upgrade on submissions.
Stay focused, don't lose the submission. Awesome job. Yes, work for that tap.
While developers have gone to great lengths to improve customization for fighters, as well as adding new locations to fight in, and a new commentary team, I found the presentation of UFC 4 underwhelming. I loved the fighting in the backyard, and thought the team nailed the vibe of the Kumite, but it's all downhill after that. It's true that there are more ways to customize fighters, more than ever before, but progression to unlock cosmetics is a massive grind in career mode. I think I made it to level 8 after about 25 fights, and that included spending some time playing online, where progression was much faster. It just seems off that EA knows the bulk of their players prefer career mode, yet progress is slower there due to how long it takes to complete a fight camp and match. The alternative to the grind is of course to spend real money to buy in-game currency. Thankfully, I found most cosmetics were rather bland, so there's no temptation for me there.
All right, here's the heavyweight contender, Francis Ngannou. Of course, he has challenged for UFC gold. He learned a lot in that fight against Stipe Miocic, but for my money, this is the biggest power threat, punch for punch, in the UFC.
The actual presentation leading up to a fight via walkouts and introductions by Bruce Buffer are okay, but it fails to reach potential. There are only a couple of pre-fight pep talks from Coach Davis, such as last-minute reminders of what your opponent brings. There are text pop-ups between rounds, but where is my coach to give me in-fight adjustments? Where's the post-fight interview or presser where you can really dig into fighter callouts and give your career some personality? Even the commentary by Daniel Cormier and John Anik is just okay, though it is much better than Joe Rogan from past games. There are some funny moments and accurate analysis as well, but it's beyond weird to hear Daniel call out his own fights, crapping on his own performance. Overall, the commentary is miles behind that of a game like NHL 20.
She is such a diverse striker that big strike landed, and it looks like she's gonna finish this fight.
UFC 4 is a weird game for me. The developers delivered on the things they promised they would, which was gameplay improvements, fighter customization, and a career mode overhaul. Gameplay is the champ here, and career mode will be fun for 1 or 2 runs. But when you look too deeply, you see there's a lot of meat left on the MMA carcass that could have been harvested. Career mode is good, but perhaps it would have been great, and those extended fight camps not so bad if Coach Davis had more screen time and made it feel more personal. Maybe the events would feel more immersive if there were pre- and post-fight interviews and interactions. Maybe the social media mechanic wouldn't feel so empty if I could manually target a fighter and start beef. That said, I absolutely love how I learned new moves, had opportunities to train and improve them, and was able to craft a perfect fighter for my style. I wanted a devastating overhand right, and I got it. I found out partway through my career mode I needed better submission game, and I worked on it. The gameplay of UFC 4 is stellar and rewarding, but once the novelty begins to wear off, there's not much here to keep players invested. For more video reviews and everything else gaming related, you're already in the right place. You're on Shacknews.com.